Okay, hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Make Today Count. Really amazing guest for you today. We've got social media strategist and personal brand consultant, Claire Durrant. Claire, how are you?
Hi, Ross. Yeah, I'm really good. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
No, you're welcome. Just to fill listeners in, we've just done your podcast, which is amazing. We'll share details more of that at the end of the podcast as well. But if people haven't come across the work that you do, Claire, just give us a bit of background about kind of how you got started and kind of where you are today, please.
Awesome. Yeah, so I don't have a marketing background necessarily. I didn't start off my career in social media. I actually went to university and studied biomedical science, of all things, but quickly realized that it wasn't quite what I thought I would enjoy. So really, I created a blog. So it was back in 2011 when blogging was really just getting going. Like Zoella, for example, had a blogger website. It was kind of really early days of that influencer blogging space. So I just had a blog, which I kind of filled my time with because I really disliked my course and I needed something else to focus on. But through doing that, I kind of self-taught myself how to market content, how to create engaging content, what to listen to your audience to see what they like. I learned kind of the tips and tricks of algorithms and how they change and all that type of thing. I kind of learned on the ground doing it myself and managed to kind of grow a little bit of a following at the time. It was a small blog, but I was able to create a small audience for myself to the point where people were starting to come to me and say, "Hey Claire, how did you do that? Can you help me do this? I want to do that." And it got to the point where I was like, maybe I should start charging people for this. They're making money off the advice that I'm giving them. So maybe I should think about how I could create a business or move into that space myself. So I kind of naturally found myself in the social media marketing world. Being a millennial, I grew up in the evolution of social media from the day that Facebook was literally, you had to have an action when you were updating your status. It said it had to be that Claire is something rather than anything. So really early days. I even had Bebo and MySpace as predecessors of Facebook. So I've been here for the whole evolutions, which has been really exciting. My career-wise, I've worked in-house at an agency as a head of social media, working with B2B clients and B2C. I've worked in large charities as head of social media, running teams and building communities online. And recently, I've kind of transitioned into my own space where I'm able to service clients in a range of different ways. Mostly I focus on helping business owners use social media really strategically to achieve business growth and business results. And I take on one-to-one clients and do workshops for personal branding for independent consultants or entrepreneurs or business owners or leaders in their spheres who want to hone in their personal brand and make an impact online that way as well.
It's really interesting. From your background, it sounds as though you've worked for, lots of different kind of sectors or niches or industries. Would you say that, the approach to social media marketing and that is pretty consistent across the board? Or do you need to kind of tailor from a charity to maybe a small business to maybe a large corporation? Or is it just the same kind of thing?
Absolutely. I think it's really important to tailor your approach. Obviously, we've all got the same set of tools. So we've all got Instagram, Facebook, the same sort of platforms to use, but it's how we use the tools to achieve our goals, which is kind of where I come in to help people navigate that space. So if you're a B2B business, you might choose different platforms to use than, say, a B2C kind of business that maybe you're selling cookies or maybe you're selling clothes or something that's really commercial that way. Instagram and Facebook are really fantastic for that, but doesn't work so much if you're maybe selling software or selling other types of business to business services where you need to have more of a professional presence and speak to people in a very different way. So there's a few things to consider. particularly kind of what your business goals are, what the outcomes you want to achieve, who you're talking to, because different people, different audiences are on different platforms in different capacities. So that's really important. And then what you're kind of wanting to tell them. Are you wanting to ask them to buy? Are you asking them to donate? Are you asking them to join a community? Being really mindful that each platform allows you to do these things all in a slightly different way, which either makes it easier or harder, depending on what you're looking for. So I completely recommend that people look at tailoring their approach to social media based on, you know, who they are and what they're trying to achieve.
And I think for, you know, especially small businesses, you know, kind of knowing they need to do that stuff, but not quite sure knowing how and what and when to do all this stuff. You know, this is when you come in as a strategist. You know, people may have heard the term, they've, you know, seen maybe other people working with friends, businesses and so forth that do that kind of stuff. But just in a nutshell, what would you say your role predominantly is when working with the business? And at what point do people usually come to you? Is it the fact that they create a business and they think, right, I'm going to hand it all over to Claire? Or is it, you know, they've done it for a little while and thought, you know, I really need some help with some of this stuff?
Yeah, great question. I usually intercept in businesses normally around end of year one of new businesses. That's kind of where I love to work with businesses, because you've got, you know, the basics are in place and you're ready for liftoff. I feel at that point, they've done it themselves. They've figured out what works a little bit and what they want to be putting out online and started a bit of a following. It's then that I kind of come in and help them use what they've got already and escalate that in the most time efficient way, cost efficient way, but also so they know that they're getting results. So it's a common misconception that having a beautiful Instagram feed is going to mean that you're going to have loads of sales and loads of customers and a big following. Unfortunately, that's just not the case. And it takes a little bit more than that to actually use it to, you know, service your business. So I'm normally working with people who probably have a bit of a limited budget, but they need big bang for their buck. So they want to make sure that they're getting real results. So maybe they're running their first ads on social media. They've never done that before, or maybe they've played with it and not seen the results. So I come in and help them do some testing, figure out what works, and then how we scale that moving forward in the business with a real kind of focus on strategy around goals and optimizing for results.
Yeah, you mentioned there about ads, and it's something I can relate to. You know, in the past, I know when I've thought I could dabble with like Facebook ads and that kind of stuff, and then you know, the months passed and you've spent a lot of money, but there hasn't been much return. So, you know, I agree. There's a real art to some of this stuff, and exactly where you guys come in. Claire, we're talking predominantly about LinkedIn today, and LinkedIn being, I guess, for me, it's kind of one of those social media platforms today where I don't think people immediately run to LinkedIn. I think maybe everyone kind of goes to Instagram or Facebook because that's where generally they think people are running out. But I know from experience that, especially from a B2B perspective, like, you know, where I work, it's hugely valuable. So I'm really excited about getting into the conversation today about how we can really optimize what we do on LinkedIn. And hopefully, if you haven't used LinkedIn before, the conversation today will help you to kind of take that first step. So what I want to do is just layman's terms, strip it right back. And so if somebody even hasn't seen LinkedIn before, how would you describe the platform, and predominantly what kind of the benefits and what is it used for?
Awesome. So this is my favorite subject. LinkedIn is my jam. This is where I spend the majority of my time. And I'm really excited to share some of this stuff with you because it's a really growing platform. So to strip it back, LinkedIn, you may have first heard of it or experienced it. It used to traditionally be the home of your online CV. It was where you registered your email address probably about 10 years ago, and you put in kind of your basics, where you went to school, where you worked, and that type of thing. And you maybe updated it maybe once or twice a year if maybe you were looking for a new job and you wanted to use LinkedIn for that. Or if you got a promotion and you wanted to update your job title. Those are the kind of things that people are used to using LinkedIn before. And yeah, it still is a place for your online CV. You can list where you've worked, who you've worked with, what your skills are, what your experience are. So it's really fantastic way to kind of keep that all in one place. But it's so much more than that now. So in 2016, LinkedIn was purchased by Microsoft, and this is where things started to change. It's now moved from that static online CV to a really thriving hub of business leaders, individuals who are networking with kind of a professional, business-driven purpose. So they're there to do business, they're there to learn from each other, they're there to network in a really purposeful way, which is where it really differs from Instagram and Facebook, which I kind of see as traditionally passive platforms, where people, you watch a video and you might engage with posts and your friends, but you're not there to do business. You're not there to do huge tasks. You're normally watching television. So you're in quite a different state. You're in quite a different manner of being when you're engaging with those platforms. You're not likely to jump on a quick call straight after you've watched a video on Facebook, for example, whereas on LinkedIn, people are using it during their working day. They usually have it open on their desktop. Interestingly, for a social media platform, it's about 50-50 mobile to desktop users. So it's real evidence that people are having it open in their browser and using it tactfully throughout their day, meaning that they're in the mood to work, they're in the mood to network. So jumping on a call, if they've seen or connected with you, is such a more natural thing to do with that platform. But what you can do is in a similar way on then with other platforms, you can share content, you can connect with people that you can connect with people that you don't know, and grow your network and learn about other people as well.
Perfect. And I think, for some people, they may think, LinkedIn is purely kind of B2B. My experiences, from working in the past from, B2C, although predominantly the business owners on there, I think for me, when I was B2C, not necessarily with connecting with my clients in that space, but connecting with other business owners, maybe complementary businesses, that kind of stuff. Would you agree that there's some value there, even if you're not B2B?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're not B2B, LinkedIn is still a fantastic place, either to learn from other people in your industry or complementary, like you said. It's fantastic for that. So you're used to do wedding photography, you might link in with somebody who is a venue owner on LinkedIn, and suddenly you've got a friendship and a connection with them that can help you kind of get new business. That's a great way to do it. I've seen so many B2B people use LinkedIn really cleverly to reach their kind of clients, because even though it is a business platform, we're all people. So for example, one of the people that I've worked with, they're a fitness coach. Now, they have pivoted their business slightly because they can't be teaching in person, but they use LinkedIn to post about simple ideas and ways that you can fix back pain, because we're all working from home, hunched over desks and not set up. So they're using LinkedIn to talk to people in their situation professionally about real problems, real life things, and they're doing really well because of it. They're coming to people with, content that's relevant in the right place, in the right setting, and allowing kind of connections to make and business connections to form from it. It's really powerful. I don't recommend copying and pasting what you do in other things, but really thinking about how does your product or your service, if it's B2C, apply, and how can you use that on LinkedIn in a different way.
Perfect. So again, moving on, again, having that stripped back approach that I want to have today, we're going to be walking through kind of like the makeup of LinkedIn, all the different aspects. So you listeners kind of get a real sense of what's available to them, and more importantly, how they should be using these, because there's a real art to this, I know. We're going to start off with photos, something that is dear to my heart. Let's talk about there's two essentially, isn't there? There's the profile photo and the cover photo. Can you just talk about the profile photo first for me, Claire, and why it's so important to utilize that space?
Absolutely. So profile photos are the first thing that people will probably notice about you on LinkedIn. So first impressions really matter. So I'm really, really an advocate for having clean, bright, high quality profile photos. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you are having to have high quality professional photography all the time. Sometimes, you know, as we spoke about on my podcast, Ross, that great lighting with a phone and a good tripod is sometimes all you need to get you started. My recommendations for profile photos is making sure that it's a professional photo. You kind of cropped out of a family photo with your margarita just off frame is probably not the right photo to be using on LinkedIn. It is a professional place. So bear that in mind when choosing your photo. A clean or clear background is really effective. I use a block color on mine just because I feel that it makes it stand out. And I do that very simply in Canva, just removing the background and changing it. Distance from the camera is another thing that I speak to people about. Is imagine LinkedIn is a big networking party, a networking event. How far would you stand away from somebody that you were talking to for the first time? That's more or less the distance from the camera that I recommend people would stand, kind of that face on. People can see your eyes, they can be welcomed in and get a little bit of a taste of your personality. So profile photos are super, super important. And those are my kind of tips and tricks for those.
Yeah, they're great points. Anything I'd add to that maybe is around sort of eye contact. I think with profile photos, it's important, in my opinion, to make that eye contact. You know, there's places on different parts of the website, social media, where you can be looking away and a bit more kind of relaxed, I guess. But for profile photos, it's really important for that body language to kind of put across, you know, I want to have a chat with you, I want to consult with you. Whereby if I'm looking away, it's kind of like, am I really interested in you looking at me? It's just one of my things, but I think it's hugely important. And above that as well, we've got the cover photo, which is a bigger bit of real estate at the back there. And there's some super inventive ways that you can use that space. What would you kind of suggest around the use of a cover photo?
Yeah, this space is kind of your opportunity to show your personality and really bring people into your home and your space on LinkedIn. So when people visit your profile, they get an instant flavor of who you are and what you do, or what your personal brand is. You can use them in a range of ways. I don't feel that there's necessarily a right or wrong way to use them, but there's a right or wrong way for you. So it's deciding what works best for you. So some people have big flashy backgrounds that have loads of text on them, that has all their services. Some people have their phone numbers on there. That's fine. And that's really great for them if that's how they work with their brand. I personally use a branded stock photo, just something that's really clean, that kind of impacts and highlights parts of my working space, that gives people a bit of a quick glimpse into what it's like to work with me and who I am. But you can be creative, but yeah, stick away from the holiday photos.
I've just thought, as we're having this conversation at the moment, you know, if you're listening to this conversation, you know, Claire's been super kind and we're going through all the different facets of LinkedIn. So why not, if you listen to this, why not pull out your phone, pull out your laptop, open up your LinkedIn, and then as we go through each of these stages, just bring your eyes down, go through it, maybe get a pen out and a journal and write some notes in. Because I think if you can see the visuals of what we're looking at whilst we're having this conversation, it'll be super important. So just a little caveat as it was a slip in for there. So then moving on, we're talking about the headline. Headline is a text-based area. So tell us a bit about headline and what's important for us to consider here.
Yeah, so your headline, I classify as the most unutilized part of your LinkedIn profile. It's that 180 characters that sits just below your name on your LinkedIn profile. But what makes it really impactful is that it also follows you around LinkedIn. So when you start engaging and commenting within the feed on other people's posts, for example, people will see three things about you. They'll see your profile photo, your name, and then that headline. So this is your opportunity to capture people's attention, to tell people, you know, who you are, what you have to offer, and give them a kind of a reason to come and visit your profile and connect with you. Automatically, when you register for LinkedIn, it will auto-populate this with your job title, which is absolutely fine. You can use that, your job title, excuse me. But the only thing is that it doesn't necessarily, excuse me, it auto-populates your job title. But the problem with that is job titles never truly reflect what you do and what you have to offer. So it doesn't give you the opportunity to connect with people in the same way, and it can be a little bit distanced and not as friendly or opening or welcoming. So I do recommend hopping in there and editing it. So you have 180 characters to play with. You can use emojis in there if you want to. You can use kind of keywords that might appear in the search and help you get found. That's another way you can use it. But I do recommend staying away from like too buzzwordy type things or anything that's more jargony. So social media ninja I have seen before, which is fantastic if that's part of your personal brand, but no one's going to be searching on LinkedIn for a ninja. So the chances are of you kind of appearing because of that are slim. So be in mind that there is a search-based element to that headline as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, because, you know, in whatever industry we're in, we're all guilty of using sort of jargon within the industry. And I think, you know, if people are coming to look for you, you're right, you know, they wouldn't be thinking about that. I can't remember what I've got on mine now. So I'm like, I help businesses enhance their marketing, blah, blah, blah. So it's try and keep it a little bit more kind of conversational, I guess. Would that be the best thing?
Yeah. What you've just described is kind of what we would call an elevator pitch. I help a certain type of people achieve whatever something is by my services. That's a kind of a traditional marketing elevator pitch. That's perfect. Remember, you've only got 180 characters, so you might need to twist that. But the kind of the I help approach is a really great way of capturing the attention of your target audience straight away, because they'll see I help business entrepreneurs. Great, I'm a business entrepreneur. I'm going to connect with Ross. It's a really great way to capture people's attention quickly.
Yeah, so we've caught the attention by using the headline, and then which leads us on to another part of the profile, the about area, where we can add a little bit more about kind of the minutiae of what we do.
Yeah. So this is a free text area. You've got about 2,000 characters to play with now, so you can really go to town about, you know, bringing you to life, particularly if you're a business owner or you're an entrepreneur. But it's that space where you get to bring people into your world and show them what you have to offer. So I always recommend write in the first person. It's not a biography. It is you telling people about what you do, and you want to make a personal connection. So I always tell people that people buy people first rather than buying brands. So if you are welcoming people in, you're conversational in your about page, you're more likely to get people to kind of connect and engage with you. Other things to think about in this section is it'll only preview a short section at the top, and then there's a read more button. What you put in those top 3 or 4 lines needs to be enough and is exciting enough to get people to click the read more, so they can then open up that section and expand more. So make sure that you're really paying attention to those top few lines to get people to read more. Other things that you want to use in that section is tell people what you have to offer. Celebrate any wins. Use this space to say, I helped X business achieve 4-fold sales by XYZ. You know, those types of stories, or I won this award, or this team that I worked with ran this campaign. Anything that you're really proud of that really displays what you're made of and what your skills and the impact that you make within what you do is a really great thing to include here too.
Perfect. An area which people may not use so much is the featured area, which I know is another part of that profile area. What's that used for exactly?
So this is a new section that kind of popped up on LinkedIn middle of last year. So what it does, it allows you to pin kind of certain posts that you want to be highlighted right at the top of your profile. So these can be popular posts or things that you really want to highlight that are particular about particular services. We'll come on to talking about what we should post and why we should post it a bit later. But this is your opportunity to really showcase what you're made of. You can add links to post, you can add links to your website, you can add portfolio links and photos to this section. So you can really go down. I personally like to use it as a bit of a signpost, other places people can find me. So I want people to come and visit me on my website where I can really connect with them directly. So I use kind of my first tile is a pull to my website. You can do that, or you can use it as a pull to your portfolio or something else like that. So you can use them really strategically, or you can just share, you know, popular posts and things that you've enjoyed as well.
I guess if you've got kind of lead magnets and stuff like that, you could kind of create a little image and link off to there, I'm guessing as well.
100%. That's a great way to use it. If you've got a lead
Yeah.
magnet, or free offer or upcoming workshop or upcoming deal or promotion, this is another great place you can highlight.
Yeah. You spoke at the beginning about, when LinkedIn first started, it was mainly kind of a CV sort of space, and predominantly it was around experience and education. And is it still important for us to kind of put that information on our profile, or is it kind of not needed so much anymore, do you think?
I think it's still really important to keep all of that information in one place, particularly if you are a job hunter or you're looking, if you're a business owner and you're wanting to make kind of business connections, either for investors and partners, or strategic partnerships with other businesses, just to give people a bit of a background of who you are. And it gives a social proof that you are capable and qualified and able to do what you say you do, because you've kind of had all these experiences. It's also the real main part of it, I guess, is it's keyword searchable. So LinkedIn is built with an algorithm that's searchable. So if people are looking for a particular person, so in my sphere, if someone's looking for social media strategy, they all might search social media strategy. I want to make sure my profile comes as high in that list as possible. So I make sure that I'm using these keywords in all of the sections of my profile, particularly in the experience and education part. So those fields allow you to add free text as well as your job title and where you worked. So fill in that free text with kind of keywords that represent what you do and what you offered. And also, use that section to bring highlights to things that you've achieved. If you worked somewhere 3 years ago and you were made staff of the year or something like that, this is just a great opportunity to share all of that and bring a real richness and depth to your profile.
And I'm guessing as well as including those keywords, it's important to mention, I think, in that you don't heavily use those, so it's then not readable or conversational. For example, if it was me putting personal branding photographer Ross Dean does personal branding photography and personal branding, blah, 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 blah. So I guess it's still important that just every now and then, I'm guessing, just to put those main keywords in somewhere in those spaces.
Yeah. Be as conversational as possible. And if you're trying to fit more than 3 keywords in a sentence, you're doing it wrong. So just what you usually say in a conversation with people, don't keyword stuff. So you'll probably seen it on other people's profile where you've got this random list of words that keep repeating it. It's called keyword stuffing. And all social media algorithms are smart enough to see that that's what you're doing, including Google does that for SEO purposes as well. If you keyword stuff, unfortunately, it recognizes that and it can actually damage you in the search. So keep it conversational, and no more than 3 keywords to a sentence.
Perfect. So we've pretty much covered our profile. We've gone through all those aspects in there. The next thing we want to do is we want to use the platform by sharing and creating content. Now, I think you spoke before about the importance of creating content that's a good fit for whichever platform that you're using. Can you just go a little bit deeper into that? And, when we're using LinkedIn, what types of content should we be creating?
So LinkedIn has a range of options that you can use when you create posts that you're sharing to your feed. In a similar way you might share something to your Facebook feed, you can share something to your LinkedIn feed as well. And that is what you are presented with when you open LinkedIn, either in the app or on the desktop version. You see this kind of running feed. In that, you have the option of doing text only posts. You can add videos and and GIFs. You can add documents. You can write articles. You can go live if you have live permissions. So there's a whole range of different options that are available. Now, I'm a firm believer that if a platform gives you the option to do something, do it. So if it gives you the option to create a video or have a video, share some videos. If it gives you the option to go live, go live. They want you to use all the features that they're giving you. So variety is a real key here. So using a few of each as you go through, if you're able to kind of do video as well as photos, fantastic. You use a combination of the two. Uniquely, which will be probably music to many people's ears, is that LinkedIn actually prefers text only posts. So the algorithm actually favors posts that don't have huge graphics or huge videos all the time. So use that to your advantage, so you're not having to create vast amounts of graphics every single time on LinkedIn. You can just share a text post and see it do well, which is, you know, a huge time saver for me when I'm busy doing client work and I can't create a graphic for myself. So that's really great to remember. Other things, if you're sharing videos, I would always recommend not using external links, or if you're sharing articles from elsewhere on the internet, try not to use external links in the body of the post, because LinkedIn is a business at the end of the day, and they want to keep people on their platform for as long as possible so they can show them ads and they can make money. So if you're sharing a link that takes people off their platform, they're not going to show it to many people. So you probably will see the algorithm down regulate you a little bit. So be mindful of that. One hack to get around that is to use, if you really want to share a link to your website, or if you really want to share a link to another article somewhere else on the internet, just put it in the comments, maybe the first comment in your copyright to see link in comments. And that tends to be, at the moment, getting around that down regulation. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So we've got a few choices, haven't we, with the types of posts that we can use within LinkedIn. We've got posts, we've got stories is now at the top there.
Yes,
we didn't have before, and articles and documents. I think that's pretty much the four that I can think of. So if we start off with post, the generic one, we've spoken there about articles, you know, the photos, video. That is really kind of like the catch-all, isn't it, for all the sorts of things you can do in there. More recently, we've now got stories at the top. Now, what would you say is the kind of the best use of that space? I know it's kind of in its infancy, but it kind of mirrors, I'm guessing, what we have in Instagram and so forth. So how do you see the best way of using that area at the moment?
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how people are starting to use that function. It popped up kind of middle of last year. And it's exactly the same as the experience you would have had on Instagram, maybe a little bit less sophisticated in the way that functionality wise, the stickers and GIFs and that kind of attribute aren't quite at the same level as Instagram, but I'm sure we'll get there. Personally, I haven't seen a huge impact in using it, but there are a few people that I have seen who use it continuously, seen some great uptick in search results for their profile, visits to their profiles and connections and things like that. I love people that use it to show you the behind the scenes things, the kind of, this is my everyday, this is kind of behind the facade of my business marketing. This is, you know, me spilling my coffee on my desk, isn't that, you know, this is me, the nuts and bolts of what it looks like to run my business. That's a real great space to do this. And it's a great place to start building more of an authentic connection with your audience as well, because it's a little bit less formal. It allows you to kind of strip back that professional manner that you might use on LinkedIn on your posts or your articles or your documents, and be a bit more approachable and introduce a bit more of your personality and a connection that way with your audience.
Yeah, I think also because it's quite fleeting, they're kind of up for a period of time. It's kind of lends itself well to that kind of behind the scenes sort of thing, isn't it? So it's like, you know, see it or miss out kind of thing as it scrolls along the top. Something, you know, we wouldn't have a social media platform without being able to connect with other people. So we've set everything up, we're putting some content out there. We want to make connections with people. Now, like anything, if we were meeting someone in the street, if we were phoning someone up, there's etiquette around some of this stuff. And although our intention is to maybe connect with someone, maybe we've seen them on LinkedIn and we think, oh, they'd be a really good fit for my business, we'd like to start a conversation. I think you'd agree there's probably etiquette around how you initiate those, because, you know, from my experience, and I'm sure from your experience as well, you get requests all the time and you say, hi, how are you? And maybe you choose to connect them, and then you get the sales pitch straight after, which just comes in like a bomb. What would be your tips around sort of etiquette and how to make those connections as fruitful as you can make them?
Yeah, we want to avoid death by sales pitch, don't we? I think we've all experienced that. I think when it comes to LinkedIn, like you just said, imagine you're meeting someone for the first time or you're meeting at a networking event. It really is not more complicated than that. Be yourself, and approach people kindly, being aware that, you know, they're busy, and, you know, not hounding people for a reply is really important. So when I'm making a connection with a person, unless I already know them, so if I know them anyway and I haven't yet connected with them on LinkedIn, I probably don't include a message, because they're, you know, aware of why I'm connecting with them. They already know me. But when you're making connection, maybe with a cold contact or somebody that you haven't perhaps you know, aligned with before, connected with before, you can have the option to add a little message. I'd keep it short and sweet. Tell them who you are, why you want to connect with them, and, you know, have a great day. You know, don't require them to necessarily reply, because lots of people, you know, we have vast to-do lists. So we don't want, you know, another thing to feel like it's taking up our time. So I might just say something like, hey, Ross, seeing that you work in a similar sphere to me, I found your content really inspiring, would love to connect with you. Have a great day. So that's kind of really conversational, really light, really intentional of why I'm connecting with you. And I would send something like that. If it was more of a business angle and you really wanted to kind of bring them into your business, or a client, you might say, hey, Ross, really love what you're doing. I have some great insights I'd love to share with you. Do you fancy a call? Like, if you want to have a call with someone, just be open. Don't wait until 5 or 6 posts down in a conversation to then go in for the kill. I think be upfront. People know that it's a sales platform. People know that we're there to do business. So just try and be as kind, polite as possible, but, you know, get to the point.
Yeah. And also just remember that probably your desire to connect with that person came from maybe some content that you'd seen of theirs that maybe resonated with you. So you could almost, that could be your inroad in that, you know, you could, that conversation could start off, I really love what you're talking about X over there. You know, similar to what you said, I've got some great insights around this sort of thing, and just start it that way. I think if you can connect to something tangible that they can connect with as well, in experience, I think that works quite nicely as well. So we're connected with all the people that we want to. The other choice that we have to make is, and it's something, there's a conversations that I see bandied about, is around the kind of benefit of using the premium service, because I guess unlike a lot of other social media platforms where there's pretty much one level of usage, LinkedIn Premium has different levels of premium kind of content and sort of access to different things. From your experience, is it something that's kind of only required for certain types of businesses, or do you think it's something that anyone can get some value out of?
Absolutely. There is value to having a premium account, particularly if you're in a hiring role or working in recruitment, if you're a managing director or something where you're constantly looking to recruit people. So having the premium option allows you access to different sales tools and recruitment tools. So that's something to consider if that's part of your role. Other things that it gives you access to, it has a fantastic educational platform where there's lots of courses and things that are available to you in that premium space. The other thing that premium allows you to do, I guess, that you might want to consider is it allows you to see more of the people that are looking at your profile. So I don't know if you've experienced when you go and look at who's looked at my profile, you can only see a small number of them. You can't see all of them. If that really bothers you, you might want to be premium so you can see who's having a look at your profile. But ultimately, other than that, I don't see a huge impact in having premium. I had premium myself for a little while, and I didn't really see much value. It's quite I viewed it as quite an expensive addition to the platform. That's definitely not essential to kind of seeing growth. And also being aware that if you do the trial, I was caught out by this, is that they take the payment all up front on the last day without warning. So I suddenly looked at my bank account and had I think it was like £350 suddenly disappear, and I was like in a panic about, how do I get this money back, because I don't want premium anymore. So just do the free trial, be very wary of the end date and see what you think, but ultimately it's not vital to success on LinkedIn.
Pop it in your calendar or as a reminder the couple of days beforehand. So remember to cancel it if you don't want it. I think you're right. It depends on the business you've got. I think for recruitment agencies, people like that, it can be hugely important. But for most people, I think you can get a lot out of the standard access. I think, it's quite all encompassing. You can get lots of different things. I think you can connect with a certain amount of people on the free plan, I think, per monthly period. I think there's some
I think the limit is
something.
It's a crazy high number, and I would say, if you're wanting to connect with that many people each month, there's probably something wrong with your tactics. and you don't really need that. But yeah, I imagine at some point LinkedIn may use it as a sales technique, that they might start limiting certain tools or certain access to things at some point, unless you have premium. But at the moment, everything that you need to get started and see an impact with your business is available for free through LinkedIn.
So I think we've covered most areas of the platform itself. Is there anything that we've missed, or anything that comes to mind that we maybe should mention as well?
I think it's just being mindful of, when you do start to share content on LinkedIn, being mindful of what you share, when you share, and how that might make an impact on your business. I spoke a lot about strategy beforehand, and why I always think that social media, whatever platform you're using, is not just about pretty pictures and nice text. It's about it having a purpose and serving your audience. And the best way to really engage with an audience and see impact on LinkedIn is to offer value to your clients, to offer value to your audience and your network, rather than being salesy all the time. So the last thing you want is somebody to connect with somebody who all they do is talk about themselves and their services, and it's all me. That's not something that really draws in a network or a relationship. So being really mindful of what value can you bring in your post, what can you share? Are there any tips and tricks that could really help out your target audience that would be nice to share? Are there any key insights that you learned, any mistakes that you could share that you experience, and then provide advice about that with your target audience? It is important to share what you do. Of course, we want to share, but it's the percentage weighting here. It's, more value and then a little bit of service sales as well. Finding a nice balance is important.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think, if you haven't used LinkedIn before, and you've gone through some of the things that we've been talking about today, and start using it for a little while, I think you'll be really surprised with kind of how much engagement and how much opportunity there is there. And I think, rightly, you were saying, if you go at it from a point of view of service and of sharing knowledge, I think when I speak to some people, they're a little bit reluctant about sharing as if they're kind of secrets as such. But in my experience, by doing that, it sets yourself apart and positions you as kind of a leader in your industry amongst your peers. So I think there's some real benefit around that.
There's a real trend. Sorry, I was just going to say, there's a real trend at the moment that we're seeing business leaders. I can't remember his name, but the CEO and founder of BrewDog is a fantastic example of this, about leaders learning in public, leaders that are open to sharing. Oh, we did this and we screwed up and it went wrong, and this is what happened, and here's how we recovered, or or saying we're going to try this, oh, it didn't work. I think it's a really nice, open, authentic way to connect with people, because we're all human, and pretending that we've got it all sorted and that we're the only one on the planet who's figured out the optimum way to do it is just not what people connect with, and it's not what people are going to want to work with you because of. It's actually those true, real stories and that authentic approach that makes people stand out on LinkedIn. And I would check him out. I can't remember his name. I'll let you know. But he does it really, really well, and is someone to follow to see that.
Yeah, it's a fantastic way of building rapport in that respect, because as you say, I think a lot of business owners often all have the same problems, even if they're not shared on social media or on their websites or that kind of stuff. So everyone can relate to it. And I think the more that you can relate to like-minded people that are in turn your ideal clients, I think that's huge in respect to that. Now, you work with lots of different businesses, and you have done in all the kind of roles that you've done throughout your career so far. What have you seen kind of the main benefits of people that you've worked with using LinkedIn, and kind of what has been some of the standout kind of, I guess, accomplishments that they've made by just making most of the platform, do you think?
So from my experience coaching people on their personal brand and using
Mm.
LinkedIn for personal brand, some of the standout things that they take away from it is firstly the process of when you start thinking about how you're showing up online, it makes you ask questions of yourself. It makes you, figure out what do I offer? Who am I? What values do I have? Lots of people get a lot of value out of that process and that thought pattern in itself. So that's obviously a huge takeaway of when you start using these platforms and using LinkedIn intentionally.
Mm.
It helps you kind of find the wood through the trees as such of what you offer and how you show up online. It's really great for that way. I mentioned before a friend of mine who has I've been working with to build her reputation through fitness. She's a Pilates instructor and she does personal training, and looking at how we adapt her values, her content to people where they are at now has meant that she's had, more bookings for online consultation. She's had her connection rates have gone up, so she's got a broader network now to speak with. So seeing that those connections and content can convert to clients and calls is hugely exciting. And personally, I've seen so much impact through using LinkedIn intentionally for my business, on the social media strategy side and for the personal branding side, through connecting with people, but also through recommendations. So I think one thing that we often don't consider when we're online. So most of us have a network that's probably full with either people that we've worked with before, people that do the similar thing to us, because we're pack people, we're pack creatures. We like to kind of band together, but it's those people that see our content that then can recommend us on. So I had in January alone had 4 calls that started with "my friend recommended you." And that's really powerful. And those recommendations, as I traced them back, were because of a post they saw on LinkedIn. They said, "Oh, I saw you type something like that. And then my friend asked me for some advice and I remembered your post. So I put you in contact." And that's so powerful. And that, is a real true testament to actually showing up with value on LinkedIn, trusting the process. Doesn't necessarily mean that your direct connections are going to mean business, but those direct connections, remembering your name, might.
And as well, like normal networking that you do in person, it's a long game thing, isn't it? So you may not get those immediate reactions, but what you put out today, as you've just shown there, can have so much, benefit later down the line. You just don't know about it. So it's important just to keep serving, keep putting the information out. And, like you've seen, and like I've seen with stuff that I do as well, it just turns out, if you're giving, usually it will come back to you in some way. I think that's true for everything that we do, be it kind of LinkedIn or not. There'll be a lot of people listening to our conversation today, Claire, and they've kind of thought, well, I think this is something that I can really get into. Maybe I've been struggling with setting up LinkedIn, or maybe I've been, I just don't have the time, or I just not sure if the time I'm spending on my social media is getting me the benefit that I really want to, and kind of putting up some structure around that. And so they're thinking about kind of working with someone to help them out with that. What would you say, what are some good things to look out for when looking for a coach to work with around social media strategy?
Perfect. Well, so for social media strategy, I think that it's really important that you resonate and you connect with the person that you work with. You're going to be on calls and you're going to be in contact, hopefully, with a good social media strategist or manager on an almost daily basis, because social media is every day. It's 24/7, doesn't turn off. So you'll probably be in contact with this person quite a lot. So making sure that it's somebody that you trust, someone that you can build a relationship with, and somebody who's looking to enter into a longer term relationship with you, that's not hugely transactional, if that's what you're looking for as well, because it takes time to grow social media. So you can't necessarily get results within a week, sometimes not in a month, sometimes not in a quarter. Sometimes you really need to, be in it and invest with that person. Avoid jumping around social media managers. If you can, try and stick with the process. So making sure it's somebody that you trust, someone that you're willing to work with long term, but also somebody that you are going to be willing to put your brand in their hands, because they're going to have your passwords and they're going to have access to post on your behalf. So making sure that you trust them in that respect is really vital as well. On a practical note, I would always look for somebody who is strategically minded and who is really focused on results rather than just appearances, because, you know, pretty social media is lovely, but it doesn't necessarily mean money in the bank. So somebody who can really understand what your business is and understand what your goals are and help you get there on a kind of a more practical business function is really important as well.
And I guess also, you know, you mentioned about how recommendations have been hugely important to, you know, your business. You know, if you know people that have worked with this coach before, you know, most coaches worth their salt will give you, maybe we'll ask them if they're happy for you to get in contact, to have a chat about how it's been for them. So that's hugely important. And actually, recommendations were something that we bypassed a little bit on the LinkedIn conversation. So I've just came into my mind. This is a really important area of LinkedIn. It's an area where you can create social proof, I guess, from the work that you're doing is good from your peers.
Yeah. Social proof is huge. And LinkedIn gives a whole section at the bottom of it to allow other people to give you kind of kudos and cheer you on and give you that social proof. I love this section. And if you're looking to grow it and get more recommendations, my number one tip is, if you give a recommendation, you're probably going to get one back. You trigger that reciprocity thing. That is a great way to go about it. On a more kind of practical platform level, often you get more weighting and more credit to your profile the more superior the person who has given you your recommendation. So for example, if Jeff Bezos gave me a recommendation, my profile would now have more gravitas to it because of his position and his following and his impact and things like that. It's not essential, you know, because we all network in different ways and we all are relevant within our industry, but just being aware that it does have an algorithmal impact as well. But give one to receive one is probably my best advice for growing that section on your profile.
Yeah, and I'll just say also, just don't be afraid about asking for them as well. You know, if you're confident you've done a great job for that person, you know, especially around the time when they've just received the service or the product or whatever that is, if you catch them in that time where they're most elated around the situation, just ask for them. Most people will be more than happy to help you out. I think for speaking to people in experience, some people think it's, you know, oh, I can't ask them to do that. I feel a bit uncomfortable doing that. But, you know, they could be so powerful. And, you know, not just on LinkedIn, you can ask them if you're happy to quote them in different areas of your business as well, which could be huge. But another important part of LinkedIn there as well. And kind of, when you're working with someone, Claire, it'd be interesting, I think, for the listeners to understand kind of what the timeline process is for, you know, that relationship. So I'm guessing there's kind of a consultation or something at the beginning. How does it kind of go on from there when you're working with someone?
Yeah, so depending on what element of my business you're looking to work with me for. So for social media strategy, my social media clients, I almost always have a discovery call. This is kind of a half an hour probably chat for us to chat about where you're at, tell me about your business, and get a sense of who you are, what your business is, whether we have that synergy, because that relationship thing is really important, but also to make sure that I feel that I can help you, because some business owners come to you and I'm like, you don't need to pay for me. Like all you need is, you know, a little bit of a confidence boost and you're fine, crack on. Some people just need that little bit of a, you know, injection of confidence in their business. But I want to make sure that I can really practically have the skills to help them. So I have a consultation call, which is usually followed up by a short proposal where I kind of say, this is what I want to do. This is the price. And that usually follows a simple kind of strategy session. I love workshops. I love workshops in person. They are best, but we are now in a world where we're doing workshops over Zoom and doing all sorts of things, making it happen. And you can be done virtually. So I do a workshop where we start getting down to kind of what the goals are. We go into the nitty gritty of tone of voice, audience. We look at goal setting and all of those things in order to shape what social media output might be at the end. And then we go on to implementation. So then we start rolling out some of these. It might be a particular campaign that we're wanting to run, or it might be a whole new rebrand of their social media presence. But it tends to be kind of follow that three-step process for social media clients. And it's not dissimilar for kind of the personal branding coaching. I run a series of free workshops where people kind of come on and learn the basics of personal branding, and then following that I offer a 1 hour power hour. So for a small fee to kind of have an hour of my time for us to chat through some burning questions, and that's kind of where that relationship starts. I also have a heap of free resources on my website as well, which are a great way to kind of have that introduction to me and figure out if that's a relationship people want to consider. A particular one that might be relevant to our audience today is I have a LinkedIn profile cheat sheet. So the same sort of content that I share with kind of CEOs and business leaders in workshops, I've kind of condensed it into a kind of a PDF download that takes you through the profile photo. And you can download that at my website, which is clairedurrant.me/LinkedIn profile. And then you can kind of get your hands on that as a taster of what to expect when working with me.
Perfect. And if you listen to this, we'll get all those links in the show notes as well. So you can head over to the page and click those through. Claire, the podcast is called Make Today Count. Reason being that the purpose is to bring together like-minded, forward-thinking business owners to engage in conversations around maybe topics they haven't engaged in before, maybe new ideas that they haven't considered before. And from the output, if it's something that maybe they've had a light bulb moment during this session, maybe they thought, LinkedIn was something I really want to get into, they haven't delved into before, that they could have kind of one step the day after listening to it that they could take to get them on their way. I think we all know that when we have a great idea, the knee-jerk reaction sometimes is to just go out and try and do everything. And often trying to do everything leads to nothing. But by taking a small step that day after could be really powerful. So for someone that is maybe thinking about using LinkedIn and the conversation we had today has really inspired them to do, what's kind of a great first step they can take tomorrow, if they listen to this, to get them on their way with using LinkedIn more effectively?
Yeah, usually the first thing that I recommend people do is to go into their feed, log in and have a look at what's in their feed, who the people that they're currently connected with, and see what people are saying, see what types of posts, and familiarize yourself with what posts do well, what posts have got lots of likes and lots of comments. Get a feel for how people are sharing online and start to engage with that. So leave comments, like things, ask questions, get involved. So social media on all platforms, it's a social thing. It's about two-way conversation. So the first thing that I would recommend is, before you even look at your own profile, is get familiar, get stuck in, start looking at content and commenting. And then you'll get a bit more of a flavor of how you want your profile to look by kind of involving yourself and having a poke around at other people's. Second to that, I would say grab the PDF download and smarten up your own profile. Get some nice, lovely new headshots, maybe. Smarten up how you look on LinkedIn as well, just to make sure that when people are connecting with you, you're giving them the first possible best impression.
Perfect. And you've spoken about the workshops you've got going on, and obviously the free resources, which we'll link to as well. Anything new in the pipeline that you're kind of working on, or things that people to look out for in the coming months at all?
Yeah, so you alluded to it slightly earlier. Ross, you were kind enough to come on to my new podcast as a guest, which we recorded previously. So the podcast is called the Getting Started Podcast. It's kind of a passion project for me, and it will be launching in later this month in February. And the premise of the podcast is similar to what I do with my clients, but it's understanding what those hurdles are that people can't seem to get over or get started on a new project. So any issues that they have about, sometimes we talk about mental health, we talk about imposter syndrome, we talk about some real practical stuff of how to get started and how to start things. But the goal is to get people on that journey to launching a new business, launching a new idea, growing something from the ground up as soon as possible.
Perfect. So if you're listening to this, I'm guessing from kind of late February 2021 onwards, be sure to head over to Spotify, all the normal places that you would listen to podcasts, and search for the Getting Started podcast. Really recommend it. The show we had on personal branding photography was really fun. So I recommend you guys checking that out. Where's the best place to connect with you, Claire? You mentioned the website before. How about on socials? What's the kind of handle that you use on there?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Claire Durrant Media, and I'm also on LinkedIn as Claire Durrant. So those are the two main platforms that I use where you can connect.
Perfect. I love to finish every podcast with gratitude. Gratitude is something that's hugely important to everything that I do, both in business and everything else that I do in the world. Just to say thank you for your generosity today. We've delved really deep into LinkedIn, and I think from people listening, they'll get such a wealth of knowledge, especially if they've, like I say, open LinkedIn up as you listen to this or watching this on YouTube, and go through each of those stages, pause it, write a little bit down, pause it, or maybe edit it as you go down. And once you've done that, get in touch with us, tag Claire and show them what you've done. I think she'll be really interested, I'm sure, to see the progress you made. But Claire, just thanks for everything you're doing in the world. I can see from all the socials and mutual acquaintances that we have, you're doing some really great work. And from the feedback I've seen from your clients on testimonials and recommendations, I think your approach is really refreshing. It's really open, and it's really in a position where you really want to serve people. And I love businesses like that. So thanks for all you do.
Oh, thanks, Ross. It's been such a pleasure to chat with you today. And yeah, love to hear any feedback of how people get on.
Perfect. So guys, if you've been listening to this conversation or indeed watching it, what I'd really love is for your feedback. So maybe you've listened to this podcast and there's been a particular light bulb moment that's gone off and you've thought, oh, I never thought of that. Let us know what that is. It's really interesting for people that put out content to know what these key moments are. So go over to Instagram, go to LinkedIn, because you'll have a new platform to use and a new profile to use. Friend us on there and just to let us know what has been really powerful for you on this podcast. Sometimes the best gift we can give someone is knowledge. So if you've got a friend, someone that's starting a business up, maybe someone that you work with, maybe you've got someone working in your business that does the social media element of what you do, share this podcast with them. For an hour of their time, they can get so much wealth. It's like a business book you can spend £10 on and get someone's life works. And same with a podcast. From listening for a half an hour, you can get so much value. And for a lot of people, it's untapped. They just don't know it. So get on the bus now and listen to as many podcasts as you can. That's my tip. But let us know what you think. As I say, tag us in. And if you haven't already done so, we'd really love you to subscribe to the podcast as well. So head over to wherever you find your podcast and leave us a review. Your feedback is always really welcome. And if you haven't already done so, if you're looking to build an effective personal brand and you're looking for a safe place on the internet where you can kind of share ideas, learn about different sorts of things, head over to the Elevate community over on Facebook. We'd love to have you there. We're a small but perfectly formed group of forward-thinking individuals that want to take their personal brand to the next level. But until next time, I've been Ross Dean. Take care. Bye-bye.